Now, Russia has warned that violent protests in Ukraine's capital, Kiev, are growing out of control after another night of clashes with police. Demonstrators have set up makeshift barricades around part of the city centre, throwing fireworks and petrol bombs at police, who've fired back stun grenades and rubber bullets. And they show no signs of going away. Our Europe editor, Matt Fry, is in Kiev now. Matt.
Well, everyone seems to be pleading with everyone tonight, Christian. The government is pleading with the protesters to stay off the streets. The protesters are pleading with the police to stay at home. And the opposition leaders are pleading with some of their demonstrators to stop throwing Molotov cocktails. I have to say, though, that none of these people, no one here, is prepared to make any concessions so far. And that really is the problem. And everyone's eyes are on this new very draconian anti-protest law, which supposedly comes into effect in about 2.5 hours from now at midnight tonight.
Welcome back to Kiev. And yes, these are fireworks, but they're used as missiles, and no one here is celebrating. The avenue leading to Parliament is now the deafening front line of a protest that's become a siege. And remember, this anger has boiled over because they want the Ukraine to join the EU, hence the ubiquitous European flag worn here as a mantle of defiance. They want their country to reject its old ally and master Russia and to embrace the future. But last night they were recruiting the ancient past to wage war against the riot police. A homemade catapult, their proudest if not most accurate weapon. There was no shortage of would-be Davids, while the Goliaths stood their ground, responding with stun grenades, rubber bullets and tear gas.
I was here a month and a half ago, and the atmosphere couldn't be more different now. This is a full-scale siege, a standoff between the protesters and the riot police right in the centre of Kiev, just about 500 yards from the Parliament building behind me.
The same Parliament that just a few days ago passed a new raft of anti-protest laws borrowed straight from Vladimir Putin. That's what's triggered this latest standoff. But far from intimidating the protesters, they're getting more organized. This young man took it upon himself to train a dad's army of amateur riot police, with shields stolen from the real police force. In the distance, water cannon. But when it's this cold, the water plays tricks. In the morning, the streets looked like an apocalyptic Narnia. The water cannon has coated everything in a blanket of ice, encrusted with discarded cobblestones and the detritus of battle. The staging is almost medieval. Take divine intervention, or the attempt of it. The Orthodox Church has sided with the protesters, and the priests are here to pray for peace and act as a human shield. This priest blessed the latest weapon in the protesters' arsenal, granny power. These matriarchs will attempt to confront the police face to face.
You're going to go to the soldiers and ask them to be merciful with the demonstrators.
Yes, it's right.
But do you think they'll listen? Do you think they'll listen?
Ask them do not obey do not obey our government and to work to be with us, to defend us and not defend Yanukovych.
And off they went, buoyed by maternal righteousness and convinced that the authorities would lend them an ear. They got their answer. This is a stalemate with plenty of potential for tragedy and no obvious solution in sight. I went off to see one of the main opposition leaders in their makeshift headquarters, a place teeming with the urgency of history, but also vexed by the prospect of failure.
I condemn the violence. And this is my key message for the last 2 days. This is not the way we can get the result.
But people aren't listening to you because the violence is continuing.
That's true. That's true. And the thing is that the more we are wasting time, I mean on both sides, the more violence we will face.
Outside in Independence Square, the protest has bedded in for the winter. Stomachs are being filled on an almost industrial scale. But what about the appetite for real revolution?
They're prepared to use violence, and most of the people on this side aren't. And that means you're going to have to go home at some stage?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. But even if we lose, I'll sleep better at night if I knew that I did all that I could.
And that's the problem of Ukraine's second stab at the Orange Revolution. Grey is the new orange.
Well, ever since the beginning of this crisis, it's been true to say that what happens in Kiev doesn't stay in Kiev, to coin a phrase. And today, just about everyone in the region weighed in on events here in this city. So, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, never one to mince his words, called the protests and the violence especially that has broken out in recent days from the protester side distasteful. He also said it was distasteful that the European Union and the United States should be what he called meddling in the internal affairs of a sovereign country, the Ukraine. Meanwhile, the European Union has said, through various foreign ministers, that the draconian anti-protest laws, which are due to come into effect tonight, are the worst they've seen in the last 25 years, since the end of the Cold War. So the stage for a confrontation, a political, a diplomatic one in the region, is certainly set. And it all now depends on what happens in that square behind me. Now, there are not tens of thousands of people there tonight. It is, by the way, almost minus 20. There are perhaps 1,000 people camped out tonight. And there are another 1,000 people around the corner in that place where you saw the confrontation in My Peace. Is it really possible that this government will weigh in at midnight to clear those tents that have been there for many months in front of the eyes of the world, and just a week or so before the beginning of the Sochi Winter Olympics? I cannot imagine that Vladimir Putin would allow the president of this country, his understudy, if you like, to go ahead with that. However, the law has been published. It is on the books tonight. And by the way, everyone in this city has been buying up newspaper this morning in order to read the detail of the law to understand exactly what they're up against. Watch this space. Back to you.
Matt Fry in Kiev. We will.